a like elective class. I was taking a communications class. It was 2008, so it was when Obama was running for president, and he was really one of the first presidents to use social media, and I was fascinated by that, and that's what convinced me. So pretty cool.
That is cool.
Oh, and I see a chat from Josiah, and I'm so, am I pronouncing his name right? Is it? I'm assuming it's him too. Does anyone know him? Okay, so he said, I'm a freshman and currently undecided and possibly exploring PR. Love it. All right, well, this is actually a great presentation then, because I put this together kind of PR. It's not 101, but it's a lot of what I do in my job. So a lot of strategy and building plans and things like that. So I think you'll enjoy it. I also have some client examples in here. And since we're a small group too, feel free to stop me if you have any questions. I will try to leave time at the end to answer questions, but I can talk for days, so just stop me if I'm going too long. Okay, so the title of my presentation is Modern Day Storytelling: How Do You Share Your Story in a Digital World? Happy Veterans Day, by the way. I won't go over this slide since Adrian did such a great job giving me an introduction, so again, thank you. So I work for WordWrite. Have any of you guys heard about WordWrite or heard of WordWrite? I see some head shaking. Awesome, awesome. So WordWrite, how we describe ourselves is we're the agency of story. So really everything that we do is all based on sharing client stories. So how we describe that is we believe authentic stories move hearts and minds and inspire action. And how we do that, we have a, what do you call that? Oh my goodness, I'm gonna forget what it's, a trademarked process called story crafting. By the way, this is my Friday today. I'm off tomorrow, so that's why. But anyway, we have a trademarked process called story crafting. So we are the only agency, I think, in the US that has this process of uncovering stories, and what we call that is your capital S story. So if you come to our website, you go to our social media, you'll see this phrase everywhere, is this capital S story. And what it basically means is that we can uncover, develop, and share your company's capital S story, and what that should tell your customers is why somebody would want to partner with you, work for you, do business with you, you know, all of those things. So how we describe it even further is that every company has its unique story to tell, and that your story should trump, we've changed this now to brand, or drives, story drives your brand. So a lot of companies, when they're coming up with the name of a company and their logo and their slogan, they start with that first, and they don't first start with their story. So what we encourage our clients to do is think about the history of your company, think about its founders, think about its subject matter experts. What is that overarching story that you want to be sharing? We recently just did a story crafting project with a law firm, and a really great example to explain this is one of the attorneys said, we have 75 attorneys telling 75 different stories. How do we share one story about our firm? And so that's really what we help businesses do, is craft and share that compelling message to their target audiences. So just, I guess, a quick overview of everything that we do. So storytelling is our main core, you know, and a lot of that does have to do with branding, messaging, logos, colors, things like that. But, you know, we were founded as a traditional public relations agency. Since then, since our founding 18 years ago, we've grown and expanded our services to include digital and inbound marketing, which I will talk about. We do a ton of crisis communications. Like, it's crazy how much crisis communications that we do, and I actually love it. I've been able to do a lot of it. We also do a lot of media trainings, crisis trainings, which I've done a lot. Actually, we've trained Kenny Wood and Nick Paradise in media training, so that's pretty cool. You guys heard from him the other day. But, you know, most importantly, and kind of our core is all about writing. That's why we call ourselves word writers. So if you're thinking about a major in PR and communications, get ready to write, get ready to speak, get ready to you know, work on those two skills. I don't know why this isn't coming up. There we go. Some of our clients, does anybody recognize any companies on here? Which ones do you guys recognize?
YMCA.
YMCA, yep.
Kennywood.
That one's an easy one. Anyone else?
The Med Express and like Visit Pittsburgh.
Med Express, Visit Pittsburgh, yeah. Yeah, so this is pretty cool. We do work with a range of companies from B2B, B2C, and nonprofit. A lot of what I do is with the B2C and B and nonprofit clients. I have such a passion for working with nonprofits, so it's kind of cool with my boss knowing that anytime we get a nonprofit client, he puts me on the account. So when it comes to public relations, the foundation of public relations, I love explaining it this way. If people ask me what is public relations, to me, when it comes to building relationships, it starts with sharing stories. And as a marketing communications professional, that's what I get to do on a daily basis. Hear and share people's stories. That's really how I describe my role. So going back to PR 101, the seniors in the room will know this. Anytime that you're building a PR plan or building a strategy, these are kind of the steps that you take. So can you guys see my cursor, by the way? I just realized I didn't put these, I didn't really identify where these go. So the first thing that most PR professionals or communication professionals will do is they'll first sit down with the client. They'll meet them, they'll ask them questions, what are their goals, who's their target audience, things like that. And then the second thing that you'd usually do is some sort of audit, right? Or some sort of research. I'm sure what you're learning in your classes is a SWOT analysis. Does anyone know what a SWOT analysis is? Oh yeah, I'm seeing head shake, love it. So a SWOT analysis, just for those who this stands for strengths. So what are the strengths of a company in their marketing? What are their weaknesses? What are opportunities? And what are threats? So that's something that you learn in school and is still really relevant once you get out of school and start actually doing the work. Then you usually put together some sort of plan that has goals, objectives, strategies, all of that. You usually have to come up with some sort of budget. And then of course you need to monitor and analyze the work that you're doing. Does that sound familiar with any plans that you guys have put together? Yeah. But wait, what's missing? Any ideas? What's missing from that? I'll give you a hint. It starts with an S. What's the story? So anytime you're putting together a PR plan or communications plan, it's really critical that you have to first think about that messaging. What's the story we're trying to share? And I feel like at times that can get lost. So what WordWrite does, we have our own unique process that's very similar. We start with sitting down with the client, we do an audit, we do a SWOT analysis, we come up with a budget, or we ask the client what their budget is. And then before we start doing anything else, we create a plan, we create a message pyramid, that's what this pyramid stands for, and I'll talk about this. And then we look at ways to share that message through all channels, right? Through an integrated marketing process. So we're not just looking at ways that we share those messages on social. We're not just looking at ways to share those messages through blogs. We're looking at a fully integrated way of how to share those messages through paid media, earned media, shared media, owned media. Please tell me you guys know what PESO stands for. Yes, I love it. So PESO, which is what I just described, this is a trademarked industry process by Ginny Dietrich, who is out of an agency in Chicago. I love her. I haven't gotten to meet her in person yet, but we've tweeted back and forth to each other, which is pretty cool. If you aren't familiar with PESO, or if you go into an interview and you aren't talking about this model, start. It'll be really impressive if you can talk about, public relations communications is using all these channels and it's not just a focus on one. So anytime that you're sending out messages on these channels, you have to make sure that they are consistent. You have to make sure that, they're compelling. And that's why we use a message pyramid to put those messages together and then share those messages. And then I added, these 3 at the bottom because we're constantly analyzing, we're constantly monitoring our efforts. And so that's really key. It's not really just like a one-step process and done. It's something that you should be doing throughout your entire, whatever it is, campaign, messaging, whatever. So kind of honing in on that process, we call it WordWrite's 3P process. And we talk about this with clients is, first we'll put together a plan, then we'll put together your message pyramid, and then we'll share those messages through Peso. And ultimately our goal is to make sure that we're delivering the right message to the right audience at the right time. So just to give you guys a quick example of a plan that we've put together, this is something I put together last year for Light of Life Rescue Mission, which is a nonprofit in Pittsburgh. They work with the homeless. They're doing amazing work. They're actually hiring, well, it's more of a senior role. They're hiring right now for a communications person. But, I couldn't put the full plan on here. I think it was like a 20-page plan. But, this was the table of contents. This is what we had put together. So, plans are pretty typical, starting with the situation analysis. Who's your target audience? What's your messaging? And then what are we looking to achieve? And then, of course, how can we share those messages through all those channels and measure? So to talk about the message pyramid, and this is really unique, and this is really where the art of storytelling comes into play. I love creating these for all my clients. So message pyramids are a way to organize. So a lot of companies will talk about talking points. So if they're about to have an interview, right, and they'll put together talking points. We recommend if you create a message pyramid, this is not only something you can use for interviews, it's something that we've used for website copy, we've used it to create social media posts, we've used it to share with staff so that everybody is talking about the company in the same way and they're not going out there and saying, oh, we do this and we do this. And nobody has a clear, concise idea of what that company is doing. So we recommend this for all communication efforts. It's really a way to not only come up with compelling messaging that's memorable and repeatable, but then that your message is out there and it's consistent. So how to put one of these together? We have an overarching statement. So how I like to describe this to clients, and I've literally shared this with clients as a slide. So you are seeing something that we've used to talk to clients about. So what's that one item that you want people to remember about you? If you wanted one thing for people to remember, what would that overarching message be? And a lot of times we run into issues where clients want to use jargon. They want to use words that are very buzzworthy. So for example, if I were to say WordWrite is an award-winning strategic marketing communications firm, how many times have you heard that? It's not going to stick out in your mind, right? If I say WordWrite is the agency of story, simple, you're going to remember us as story. You're going to remember that. So that's what we try to remind clients is you want kind of that one message that you want people to remember you about. And then what you can use for key messages, you usually like to have 3, keep it simple. People aren't going to remember probably more than 3. So these 3 statements are the validation. So it's almost like WordWrite is the agency of story because, and we talk about 3 key messages or 3 ways that we are the agency of story. So we've actually created a message pyramid for us. So one key message is that we have a trademarked process of creating stories or story crafting process. So that's one key message that we would use. And then the supporting facts of that would be data, statistics, examples. Why are we, what's information I could share about our story crafting process. So these are super helpful. We recommend this instead of doing, a list of bullet points. This really helps hone in on what's that overarching message and how can you talk about it. And we were doing a social media training with the YMCA, and we had, shared as an example, these supporting facts, these data points, stories, all of that, this all makes really good social content. Really, that's really everything that you're sharing on social is those little bits and pieces of information. Any questions about the message pyramid? Awesome. Somebody's yawning. Quit that. I'm
It's been
kidding.
a long day.
I'm joking. I'm only saying that because I don't want to yawn. Okay, so then once we figure out your plan, your goals, your objectives, and then we put together your messaging, now we can figure out how we share those messages. So this is another graphic that we've put together for clients, and how we talk about how we use Peso. So for example, when we talk about paid digital media, a lot of what that means for us is to create a paid social media campaign. We do a lot of keyword and SEO and things like that. Not my area, but we have a digital team that can do this. Earned is really my area. That's all PR, and a lot of what we do for our clients is thought leadership, which I'll talk about in a bit. So that would be your standard press release, but that's also other ways that you can share your story. Maybe it includes influencers. Maybe it's brand journalism, which would be you writing your own stories. So I will also share an example of that. Shared, of course, is social media. And then, so a lot of what we do for social media is we can help put together a strategy, we create content, we do a lot of performance reporting, so looking at analytics and things like that. We've also done social media audits for clients, and then of course campaign management. And then when it comes to owned media, that's going to be your website, that's going to be your email campaigns, you know, anything, any website optimization, and then a lot of inbound marketing is what we do, which again we'll talk about. But you know, whenever we talk to clients, we're like, what are specific ways that we can share your message? These are specific ways that we can do that. So one thing that we talk about at WordWrite is the steady drumbeat of PR. So we don't necessarily put together, we're not like an ad agency that puts together an ad campaign, which I have a major in that. I have a major in I have a master's degree in integrated marketing communications, which is all about putting together an ad campaign and having that campaign run for, I don't know, 3, 6 months to a year. At WordWrite, really what we're all about is sharing stories, sharing messages consistently. And so we talk about that with clients, meaning that it's the steady drumbeat of PR. So we don't want to just have a one and done press release. We don't want to just have a one and done story. We want to find ways that we can continue to share the story throughout the year. So I'll share some more examples of that, but that's one phrase that we like to use and that we like to remind people. It's not just about a campaign, it's more about that steady drum beat of maintaining your relationships with your target audiences. So just some examples. Okay, just some questions that I like to ask clients when we're getting to the root of their story. Again, this is actually a slide we had created for a YMCA training. So when it comes to the art of storytelling, we want to remember what's our goal. Our goal is to share stories that are moving hearts and minds and inspiring action. So ways that we can kind of dig for these stories are, first, who are we speaking to? Who are we trying to reach? What do they want to know, or what should they know? What's information that maybe they don't know about our company? This is a big one. What problems can you help them with? Too many times companies push out, think of an ad. They're pushing out information that you don't care about, or information that's just salesy, salesy, salesy. And it can be, in our generation, we've kind of gotten used to just ignoring ads. But if we're serving content that's valuable, if we're serving content that has a purpose or is speaking to a pain point of a problem, that's when we're going to listen. So I always, ask my clients is, okay, what's something that you can do to help? What stories can you share that create connections? So again, back to my original quote, building relationships is all about sharing stories. We shared stories here through our introductions. So especially working with nonprofits, we'll often share, success stories, patron stories, member stories, to create those connections with the community. What do your customers like about you? So that's always helpful to share information. What do current people like that you're doing that you can share with others, and how are you making a difference? So, I mean, we always see those stories out there about how companies are donating or giving money or, whatever they're doing, their good work, especially now around this time of year, around the holidays. You'll always see those stories. So these are just questions to ask if you're trying to think of a story to share. These are some questions to ask. Going a little into PR 101 and earned media specifically, one of the number one questions I get from clients is, do we send out a news release or is it a pitch? Do you guys know what a pitch is, by the way? Okay, awesome. So in case you don't, a pitch, which if you work for me, if you're an intern for me, you get a lot of practice writing pitches. I also had my students at Duquesne do a lot of practice writing pitches. So a pitch is essentially a short, concise email asking a reporter, an influencer, or maybe it's a partner to work with you on a story. So actually right before this, I had sent an email to the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership who handles Picklesburg. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Picklesburg. Our client Caliente Pittsburgh, or Caliente Pizza, every year puts out a pickle pizza in honor of National Pickle Day, which is on Saturday. So we reached out to Picklesburg to see if maybe we could partner with them on something. Way too late timing. We did not plan that in advance. So we said, we understand if we can't do something this year, but if we can work together next year, let me know. So it's a very short, concise request, and usually it's to a reporter. So of course, if a client asks us that, our number one question is, what's your goal? What do you want to share? Like, what's the story? So we typically boil it down to, when it's a news release, it's when you want to share big news. So if you have a company announcement, a new product, a new campaign, a partnership, all those things are kind of big news that have a lot of information to share in them. When it comes to a pitch, it's really you're sending a personalized story idea to someone. So specifically, and again, they're not the media, but specifically to PDP, the Pittsburgh Downtown Partnership, my email to them was, I know every year you plan Picklesburg. I know it didn't happen this year, but we thought we could do something fun for National Pickle Day. It might be to a reporter, I know that you typically cover, we'll talk about veterans since it's Veterans Day. I know that you typically write about veterans issues. Would you be interested in doing a story on X, Y, and Z? So it's, normally you would send those emails if you wanted to raise awareness about a company. So I'll talk about this client example later, but for example, we did a lot of pitching for the Carnegie Library because they wanted to be, they wanted people to know that they offer more than just books. So I'll talk about that campaign. If there's a subject matter expert that you're trying to get an interview with, we often pitch those people as subject matter experts. Human interest stories. So I've done so many, and I'll share some examples in a bit. If there's a specific outlet, so for example, if we're working with a B2B company, for example, we work with an accounting firm, we would pitch an accounting outlet to position them as thought leaders. So those, or if it's a like local or regional news story, that's something that we would pitch. So those are just examples on, when to do a news release and when to just pitch it as an idea. But again, as public relations professionals, and why we're having this conversation is PR is no longer just media relations. It's a mix of digital media. So you also have to think about, how are you sharing that story through paid media? Does it make sense to use paid media? One thing I want to point out with paid media, it's not just advertising. One thing that we're working with on one of our clients is sponsorships. What events could they sponsor? And the pandemic's kind of made that difficult, but are there events that we could sponsor to help raise awareness about them? Paid media, a lot of podcasts now are becoming pay to play. Do you guys know that term, pay to play? It's really just as it sounds, you have to pay to be in it, be on it, whatever. So a lot of influencers, a lot of bloggers now require you to pay them. They ask for some sort of fee if you want to place an article on their website about your product or whatever it is. So paid media also means those kind of advertorial articles that you might not realize are ads. And that's a big discussion in PR right now, is this blurred line between paid and earned media. Sometimes you can't even tell, which is scary. It's a little scary. Shared media, again, how are you sharing that story on social media, and then how are you sharing those stories on your website, in your email, all of that. So a lot of what we're putting together is is content and sharing this content in a bunch of different ways. How am I on time? What time is it? I have 10 minutes, right?
Yeah, about 7 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Let me fly through these. Okay, so to give you guys some examples of how we do this, I'll go over 3 very quickly. So Caliente Pizza, I already mentioned. The problem that we had for them was their problem. We were doing a lot of pitching to the media, and when the pandemic hit, no media were interested in doing a story about Caliente. They're interested in the pandemic. So how do we get the attention of our customers? We needed to change focus. We needed to change our communication tactics. So we actually have been helping them send out a weekly newsletter. It goes to like 14,000 people, which is amazing. And they have really appreciated this change in focus. The YMCA announced a bankruptcy a few years ago. And so during that bankruptcy, our goal or problem was, how do you share your story during a bankruptcy? And so what we wanted to accomplish is that we needed consistent messaging. We needed the people to know that the YMCA wasn't closing. So we referred back to our message pyramid, and this is actually part of the message pyramid that we had put together for them. So we were able to break it down into, the YMCA is declaring bankruptcy. That means that it's a reorganization. And so we talked about why they're filing for bankruptcy. What does this mean to people? What does this mean to members in the community? And the future plans of the why. So it was very specific messaging, and we took this message pyramid and we created emails. We put it on social, we put it on their website, and it was really cool because the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette ended up doing an editorial about the bankruptcy. And if you look at the editorial and our message pyramid, all of the messages that were on the message pyramid were in the editorial. So to us, that was a good signifier that the community understood what we were doing and why we were doing it. And then last but not least, the library. So there, again, I kind of mentioned this earlier, is they wanted to remind people that, the library offers a load of services more than just come in and borrow a book. So we have been, over the past several years, finding people's stories and sharing them with the community. So we did that by putting together a plan, putting together their messaging, and sharing those messages through a bunch of different channels. And so this is literally a screenshot of a plan that we put together for them. So just some goals, objectives, and strategies that we were focusing on. Oh, I have one more, MedExpress. So this is kind of similar to the library. They wanted to raise awareness about services and continue to drive traffic to their centers. So we positioned MedExpress doctors as thought leaders in the industry. And how we did that is we would get them a bunch of different articles anytime, especially flu season. Anytime anybody did a story about flu, we wanted them to come to MedExpress for their opinion. And then we had like a full pre and post opening strategy for them. So anytime they open a new center, we did a press release on that, invited media out, and then we continued that messaging, again, that steady drumbeat of PR. We continued that with them. Okay, so if you want more case studies and more examples of the work that we do, we can go to our website. I'm so sorry we spoke over. But yeah, was that helpful? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Feel free to write down my email, though. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Keep in touch, but any questions?
Hi, Robin. Thank you so much for meeting with us. I was just going to ask, could you explain a little bit about the structure within WordWrite, within your firm? What kinds of positions and people do you have assessing and working with these clients?
That's a great question. I'll try to answer it very quickly. So we're a very small firm. There's 8 full-time employees. We have our executive leadership team, which is the owner, the person who does our finances and HR, and then our VP. So that's the executive leadership team. And then below that is really the accounts team. So there's 2 account supervisors, which is me. We split accounts essentially. So we don't really work together that much. I lead my account, she leads her accounts, and we just do that because it would be way too hard to, manage all of the accounts at once. And then we have a digital team. The director of digital strategies does all of our digital marketing. If I have any questions or if any of my clients are interested in digital marketing, I go to her. And then she has a digital support specialist. I'm getting all the titles wrong, but she has, somebody working with her on her team. And then we have a brand journalist who is a former reporter and a really good writer. So he often does like a lot of our writing for our clients.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, we're a little different, I think, from other agencies because we're so small.
Yeah, I didn't realize that you guys like were so small, but that's cool.
Yeah. What other questions? Oh my God, less than a minute, guys.
I think we're going to wrap up before we get kicked off. But thank you, Robin, for coming and speaking with us. That was great. And if anyone has any further questions, feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever. She's everywhere.
I'm everywhere. All right, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a
Thanks.
good one.